Hello, this is Nicole Monahan with Monahan Studio. I am going to do a lesson today on the biggest pitfall I see in watercolor paintings. Watercolor paintings are so beautiful because you can get that translucent quality in there, but the biggest problem I see is people aren't getting the saturated areas. And even with watercolor, you want areas that are super saturated, so there's a lot of pigment, and areas that are kind of in between, and then areas that are almost white. That way you get the whole gradient there. And that's how your paintings can look really vibrant and beautiful. So this is just a simple scene here, and I'm going to show you how to do a few of those things. First off, a big problem with getting that saturation is having good watercolor paints. If you're just starting out and you're wanting to practice, I suggest getting Prang. It's a really good, vibrant watercolor that it's just pan watercolors, but it's really the best I've seen out there. If you're more advanced, I suggest getting, oops, upside down, Daniel Smith. It's not focusing. Daniel Smith watercolors are excellent. That's what I like to use the most. So I'm just going to show you real quick a few things here. A lot of watercolors like to have a big tub of water. I do not, just because I like to have super clean water all the time. So having a little bowl with a little bit of water in it, I can dump it out and refill it a lot without wasting a bunch of water. That's, I think, totally a personal preference thing. Okay, so I'm going to use the Prang, and I'm going to start with, I guess you can't really see this, huh? That's okay. I just want you to kind of see how I pick up the, there we go. Okay, so we want to have a good amount of water, but not dripping. And we'll pick out, I'm just going to do a little quick sky up here. So if you start at the top, the more pigment you have and the less water, the more saturated it will be. And if you work kind of, I'm working pretty fast here, and I'm just going to clean my brush, get clean water, and pull that down. So my goal right now is to get from saturated to really light. And this is the reason why I'm doing this. It's a really good way to practice getting your saturation. Okay, as you get more advanced, you'll want to try different techniques, but this is just a really good way of practicing getting your saturation. And I'm going to grab a little bit more to get it a little bit more saturated up here. So I'm barely touching the paper, and again, I don't want to have my brush dripping, so I have big pools of watercolor. And then I can just bring it down here till it gets white. Okay, now I'm going to put some mountains here to show you mountains. Just going to fill a few of these little speckles in. So there's always exceptions to the rule, but mountains generally tend to be more saturated towards the top, and then they get lighter. This is because of atmosphere. So I'm just going to make some purple mountains. Mountains, actually I'm not going to do purple mountains, just because I want to keep it really simple, right? I'm just going to do some blue mountains. We're going to just do this whole thing in blue. Again, a good way to practice is just use one color so that you don't have to worry about colors. Your only thing you're worrying about is saturation. Now, good thing to do in between is to dry this with a blow dryer or something so that you don't get any bleeding going on. I'm not going to do that, so just for the video's sake, I'm going to just come down a little bit further from my water. Watercolor dries fairly fast. So you want to start at the top, and you can make your peaks of your mountains, you know, as jagged as you want. Mine are not going to be too jagged here. And I'm going to grab some more just to get a little bit more at the top. And again, I'm wanting to keep it, see how it's bleeding into my my water up there because I didn't properly dry it, and I will show you how to fix that later. So I'm cleaning it off just using clean water, and I'm pulling it down. So I'm going from saturated down to light again, down to white. Now I didn't clean my bowl, so you can see it's a little bit harder to get down to white because I'm not working with clean water. So it's a good example of how it's good just to jump up and get yourself some clean water. Okay, and I might come up here and add a little bit more because I feel like I'm not getting the gradation that I want. So it's okay to add some later. Depending on your paper, it may not be as easy to add. It's good to make sure with watercolors that you have a thicker paper and one that's good for wet mediums. That way you can kind of move the watercolor around a little bit. If you don't, the watercolor really soaks into the paper. Okay, so if you have something like that going on, you want to have a flat brush. This one's kind of a wedge, and you can come up here and I let it sit a little while. So see how I'm just doing one swipe and wiping it off. One swipe, wiping it off. And you can clean up that edge a little bit that way. So even though it was sitting for a while, since I've got some good paper, it was still fairly okay. There you go, all clean. Now, I'm just going to show you real quick some water. And so water's horizontal, colors and highlights, depending on how turbulent the wind is and the water, your waves might be a little different. But we're just going to say this is a nice calm day. So again, it's a little wet here, so we may see a little bit of bleeding. I'm going to start from down below and go up. So closer to you, the waves will be further apart and they'll have more contrast. And I'm just doing horizontal so that because it's a nice calm day. So more contrast would be darker, my more saturated areas, and really white areas. Okay, and then as you get further back, you'll have lighter saturation, and your waves will get closer together, your ripples, because you're looking further out into the distance. They will get closer together. Closer up, they'll be further apart because you're looking right down on it. Okay, and I'm just going to add a little bit of darker saturation in the front. There you go. So this is a really good way to practice your saturation in watercolors. Thank you. Again, this is Nicole Monahan. I'm an illustrator out in the Pacific Northwest. I will see you later. Bye.